Alright, welcome back everybody. I am here to review the Wishmaster, the very first Wishmaster. I'm going to review the entire series. It's only 4 movies. I was thinking, what are some good old horror movies I could review? And I really like the Wishmaster series. It's one of my favorite horror movies. I don't know why. I guess I just liked how you can be really creative with a movie like this. You can have him, kill people in all types of crazy ways, and it's a really fun movie. So I thought, well, I'll start with this. There's a lot of old horror movies I want to review, but I hadn't seen these in a while, so I thought I would start with the Wishmaster series. So this is Wishmaster Part 1, and it starts off and you have the narrator, and he's telling you about the Djinn and who they are, where they really come from. They're kind of there's the world of angels, and then there's humans on Earth, and the Jinn are kind of trapped somewhere in between the worlds. And they're really like evil, and they have all this dark power. And it says if you fear only one thing, fear the Jinn. Is the point of the story. So it cuts back to this old Persian king, centuries ago, and you just hear the Jinn ask him what a second wish is, and he says, "For you to show me wonders." So all of a sudden, this guy's entire palace and all the people in it, the servants, the citizens, everyone, is just going crazy. I mean, they're getting mutilated, they're getting tortured, just killed off, they're all murdered. Like one guy becomes kind of a half man, half crocodile. Skeletons rip out of people's bodies and start attacking everyone. It's really crazy, but one thing about this movie is it has pretty good effects. It came out in 1997, and some of it looks a little cheesy, especially in the beginning part, but for the most part, they did awesome on the makeup and the special effects and all that. So I have no complaints here. And plus, this is also the only Wishmaster that was actually released in the movie theaters. So everything else is direct to DVD, and it's all downhill from here. Like, the other movies aren't that bad. 3 is horrible, just completely horrible. But the other 2 aren't really that bad, but for direct to DVD. But this one's definitely the best of all the Wishmasters. So the king sees all his people in pain, and the Wishmaster says, "Make your third wish, you can make it all go away." And he's about to do that, but the sorcerer comes in and says, "King, you cannot do this. You can't make the third wish, because if a person makes all 3 wishes, the Jinn and his race of people, the Jinns, they come to Earth and they rule over Earth." So he convinces the king not to do it, and then instead he seals the Djinn inside this gemstone, this big red ruby looking gem. So it comes back to present day, and Robert England, who is like an antique dealer, is getting a statue of some kind of old, god, and it's being lowered in a crate on the docks. And this movie has a lot of cameos from like old horror icons, like Freddy, Robert England is in here, Kane Hodder who played Jason, Tony Todd who played Candyman, just a bunch of old Ted Raimi's in it. Just a lot of old horror movie icons are in this movie. So it's also really cool just to see that. And Robert England is basically there, and he's getting his crate, and one of the workers who's lowering the crate has been drinking on the job, and Ted Raimi, who is Robert England's assistant, is yelling at him like, "Careful with that thing," because the box is like swaying back and forth, and the crate drops and it kills Ted Raimi, and the statue inside breaks. Robert England's freaking out, but one of the dock workers sees that there's this red gemstone inside it, and he steals the thing. He basically goes off and pawns it, and you see the pawn shop owner coming to this like auctioneer house where people get stuff appraised, and he asks them to check it out and let him know what it's worth. They do, and the owner is looking at it, and he has his basically the best appraiser he has, who is the lead girl, Alexandra. He has her come and take a look at it. And she's looking at the thing and she's kind of breathing on it and rubbing on it and checking it for stuff. And at first she says it looks great, but after she rubs it, she starts to see like weird visions inside the thing, which she basically awoke the Djinn. So she's starting to say maybe there's something wrong with this after all. So she calls her friend, who's this guy who uh, he likes her, but she just wants to be friends, and she has him take a look at it. Well, he has it blasted with lasers basically to try and see like what's up with this thing. And the gym heats up and then cracks, releasing the Djinn, causes the lab he works in to explode and all this other crazy crap. And he's basically there bleeding to death, and the Djinn crawls towards him, and it's kind of like a half baby thing. I read online that it was actually this baby form of the Djinn was played by Vern Troyer from Austin Powers Mini-Me, which I didn't know when I watched it. But it crawls over to him and it says, "I can end your pain, just wish it away." And the guy says yes, and the Djinn basically kills him. And then the Djinn can take on a more human appearance. He looks like a person. Well, he's standing upright and stuff, but he still looks evil as hell. So he's still a monster right now. But he gets his power slowly as he grants wishes. So Alexandra finds out that this guy, who she was best friends with, is dead. And the last thing he was working on was the gem she gave him. So she goes to see him at the lab, and she meets this policeman, and he says, it wasn't your fault. It's just a freak accident. It didn't matter, he was working on the gem. It's just, stuff like this happens all the time. But she knows that something's going on. So she goes and she finds the pawn shop owner and then the dock worker who stole the gem. And she asks the dock worker where he, what it came in, where he got it, who it was going to. And he tells him it was to Beaumont, which is Robert England. And then he asked her, I sold that for $200. Did I get ripped off? And she says, royally. So he sold this gigantic ruby type gemstone, or whatever it is, for $200. And this thing is huge, people. So I thought that was funny. But basically she goes and she tracks down Robert England, and he tells her that if she wants more information on the Djinn, to go see a folk lore expert. So he directs her to a friend of his. And the friend basically tells her that the Djinn is an evil creature who grants wishes, and whoever woke the Djinn has to fill the gemstone with all the souls of the people who, ask for stuff. So they ask for a wish, he kills them, takes their soul, and then once that gemstone is full, he basically has to grant her 3 wishes, and then once her 3 wishes are answered, the Djinn can walk the earth. So, meanwhile, the Djinn is kind of still in his Wishmaster form, that's this like green monster, and a homeless man gets into a fight because he's loitering outside a pharmacy. And he says, "Man, I wish that pharmacist was dead." And the Djinn says, "I can make that come true." And he thinks he's just messing around, so he says, "Okay, kill him. Give him, cancer or something like that." And the Wishmaster basically says, "Done." And then inside the pharmacy, the pharmacist he starts foaming at the mouth and getting all these like boils on his face and hands, and then he just dies, and the homeless man freaks out. So the homeless man, because he asked for someone else to die, doesn't die directly. But later on, when the Djinn has enough souls and he summons them, all the people who, wish for something, if they're still alive, will then die. And they become trapped inside the gemstone. So you see the Djinn, and he's in the morgue, and he's kind of taking his finger and cutting a person's face off, like going around their face. And a worker who works at the morgue comes in and says, "What are you doing in here?" And he starts freaking out because he sees what the Djinn's doing, and he says, "Do you wish to not see this?" And the guy says yes, so he kind of seals his eyes shut. And the guy can't open his eyes, and he's freaking out. And the next time you see this guy, actually, he's in a mental institution or something, and it's when the Djinn is summoning all the souls back to go into the gemstone. He's in there, and he's just freaking out, and his eyes are still sewn shut. It's really horrible, actually. But the Djinn puts the face on, and then he becomes human. He looks just like a human. All he needs is the face of a body, and then he can take on that entire form with just the face. So he starts to call himself Nathaniel Demarest, and he basically goes to a store to buy some clothes. He's flirting with the shop girl, and he's kind of like hitting on her, and she likes him. And then he starts to talk about how, one day your beauty will fade. How would you like to be beautiful forever? Just wish it and I can grant it. So she says, "Okay, I wish to be beautiful forever," and he turns her into a mannequin. And you kind of see the eyes in the mannequin roll back. So now the Djinn's made a lot of wishes, I guess, and he starts to wonder where the Waker is, Alexandra. So he goes to the police station, and he's talking to the cop who was talking to Alexandra when the lab exploded, and he asks her for the information, and the guy wants to know why he's so curious, why he's asking about this, why he's trying to find her. And meanwhile, the cop keeps staring over at this guy the other cops are interrogating. And the Wishmaster asks him, "Why do you keep looking over there?" And he says, "That guy comes in here all the time and he always gets off. He's this, horrible criminal." And Wishmaster says, I bet you wish you could do something about that. And he says, "Yeah, I do." So the Wishmaster has this criminal get up and go crazy. He gives him like super strength. He starts throwing the policeman. He rips one guy's jaw off. And they all start to have to hold him down and try and fight him off. The Wishmaster looks at the police's desk and gets the files. He gets the file for Alexandra, and the cop looks over and he says, "What are you doing?" But he has the criminal grab a gun, so then the cops are all distracted even more, and they have to shoot the guy. So the Wishmaster basically just gets away, and he doesn't have her address. He just has her business card where she works. So he goes down to see her boss, and her boss is really greedy. He's really weaselly, and he asks him, for her address. He won't give it out, so he kind of turns an object in the office into gold, and the guy still won't answer. So he says, "What will it take? Ask me for anything." So the guy says, "How about $1 million?" So the Wishmaster says, "Done," and then we see the guy's mom signing her, insurance papers, and then getting on a plane and the plane crashing. So I guess he gets the $1 million. I don't know if all that happened slightly before, or if the Wishmaster just made that happen. That would take hours for all of these things to occur, so that part was a little goofy. But he gets the address, he goes to the building, and Kane Hodder is the doorman, and who is Jason. And he will not let the Wishmaster in. And the Wishmaster says, he's trying to convince him to make a wish, and he says, "I wish you would leave." So the Wishmaster has to leave. And he's kind of mumbling to himself. He's like, "I have all these powers, and I can't, I'm confined by wishes." So he's getting really mad, and he says, "Man, I need to get in there." And then you hear the doorman say, over my dead body, or you have to go through me first. And I would love to see that. So the Wishmaster grants that as a wish. You technically don't have to say "I wish." You can say "I love," or "I would love to have this happen." Anything like that he can take as a wish. No one has to say "I wish" for this. So he basically just goes directly through him. It turns him into glass or something, and then he opens the door and he shatters. It was really weird looking. 1997, but It was okay. Anytime he's killing people, Alexandra is having these visions of the deaths. So she goes back to see the folk expert, and she goes to see the lady again, but the Djinn has already killed her and taken her form. So while she's talking, she's trying to convince her to wish for things, and Alexandra starts to get really freaked out. Like, she says, "Are you hot in here? Do you wish it was cooler, or would you like something to drink or eat?" And she doesn't buy into it. She realizes it's the Djinn. So the Djinn just comes right out and shows himself, and he says, "I'll give you a test wish to get you into the spirit of the game." And she wishes that he would kill himself. So he grabs a gun, blows his brains out. It comes right back. He says, "That which is immortal cannot be killed." So she wishes to know her opponent. And he sends her inside the gemstone. It's like this little red world full of rooms. And she sees all the people's souls he's taken. They're all tortured. The policeman's chest is like ripped open and held by hooks and stuff. It's really messed up. And then the Wishmaster has his little pet dog, and it starts to chase her around. And he says, "You can't escape. You're going to have to make another wish. I don't have to kill you, but I can make you wish you were dead," basically, so that she'll have to grant more wishes to escape the pain. And, he threatens her sister. So she wishes she was back in her apartment alone. And the Wishmaster calls and threatens her sister. So she goes to Robert Englund's party he's having, where her sister left a note saying she was going to be. So she's driving to the party. She gets to the door. She tells the doorman, who is the Candyman, "This guy's chasing me. He's crazy." So she runs in, and the doorman stops the Wishmaster outside, who is in his human form again. And they get into this little argument, and he says, "Don't you wish there was something more to your life? Don't you wish you could just escape?" And the doorman eventually says, "Yeah, I do." So he puts him in kind of a Harry Houdini, straitjacket, gotta escape from the water trap, basically killing him off. And then he just walks freely into the party. He's talking to Robert Englund. He says, "I was at a party like this once that people would remember for centuries." And Robert Englund says, "Man, I'd love to throw an unforgettable party." So the Wishmaster turns his party like the original Persian party, where everyone's getting killed and murdered. The piano goes crazy and starts ripping people up, the fireplace, and just all types of stuff. One lady turns into glass and then shatters, and the pieces stab other people in the eyes. It's a really, really crazy scene. Alexandra's running. She's running through the halls with all these art pieces the guy has. These statues come to life. Some bodyguards who were at the party get killed by these statues of like old warriors and ninjas. One scene that was kind of corny was she runs by a picture of Jack the Ripper, and he comes to life through the picture. And I didn't really like that part very much, but I don't have many complaints with this movie, but I definitely would have changed that. So she makes it to the last room. The Djinn is there, and he basically says, "Make the final wish or your sister will be killed." He has her sister trapped inside a painting. She doesn't make the wish, so he says, he just says, "Let's burn this party," or something like that. And then the painting catches on fire. So her sister's trapped inside the painting. The painting's burning. And then Alexandra remembers, she calms herself down and she thinks, and she says, "I wish the dock worker wasn't drinking that day on the job." And basically, because he wasn't drinking, he didn't drop the crate. So everything goes back to the way it was. The Wishmaster is sealed back inside the gemstone. The guy she was friends with, he's alive again. And she's actually asking him out, even though she turned him down and said she just wanted to be friends. Now that they're all alive again, she wants to go out with him. And everything goes back to normal. Robert Englund gets the statue, the gemstone's safe inside the statue, and he has his piece, and everything is fine. So the last scene they show is the Wishmaster sitting in his throne inside the gemstone, just waiting to be released again. And that's it. That is Wishmaster 1. And like I said, I really like this one. They have a lot of good effects and makeup and all that stuff. It was the only one released in theaters. but I do like this. It's one of my favorite horror movies. I just think it's a really creative movie. You get a lot of cameos from old horror movie icons in here, and I just thought it was great. So I hope you guys like this review. Subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button on the videos. Leave some comments. If you have any horror movies you'd like me to watch and review, let me know in the comments, and I will definitely try to do them. And check back here later for a review of Wishmaster 2. Thank you. Bye.